Barry, do you want to,
yes,
would you like to come back on that?
Yes, I think one of the big numbers that appears on all MPs' expenses is the cost of employing staff. What happens in the start of the current session of the European Parliament is that staff moved on to the books of the Parliament rather than the MEP, and it may well be sensible to get the apparently scary numbers down if MPs, researchers, MPs, constituency office, MPs, constituency staff were actually paid for out of central funds rather than out of the subvention to the MP. And therefore, the big numbers would almost disappear then, and it would be fairly clear what was left to the discretion of the MP and what they were choosing to spend money on.
Thank you.
I think you ought to allow the audience to cross-examine.
Thirdly, I would encourage people to speak up, which I also failed to do earlier on. There was a hand here.
With the new systems that are being set up,
There's a microphone there if you'd like to go there now.
with the new systems that have been set up following the MP's expenses, we've had 2 or 3 reports which have cost more than has been recovered from the expenses. We also have, I believe the figure is 80 people in the expenses department handling the expenses of 60 MPs. If a company was doing that, they would go bust. How can we justify this enormous bureaucracy, which was brought about by a lack of integrity by MPs in the first place?
Yes, it has, I think it was £1.3 million was repaid by members of Parliament, and it cost £1.6 million to set up the body to oversee these payments. This is true. Nevertheless, the value of restoring the public's faith in the way that democracy works is much more than that, I think. And so, while it does seem expensive, and I think it does have to be done.
Denzil, you were nodding at one point.
Yes, well, I agree. I mean, you've got to have the independent body to do the review because the long-term benefits of cutting down on these expenses outweighs the cost. So I think that's worrying about that cost. In the end, there's long-term benefits from it. But we need to go much further, as I pointed out. The way the Parliament is run needs to be looked at very carefully, and we need to look seriously at the savings we can make. I know that we are in agreement with other parts reducing the number of MPs, looking at all sorts of changes, looking at staffing, looking at the job criteria for MPs as well, and what the public expects of MPs too. Needs to be looked at so that we do come to an agreed formula for how MPs are paid in the future.
Anything to add over here? It's not compulsory, isn't it?
Well, I just think that there has to be a better way so that there aren't these ridiculous expenses to claim. I mean, nobody else can claim for a second home, nobody else claims for a car. Well, I don't know.
Fortunately, we're close enough to London that the new system's not going to let us do that.
Yes, I've had staff members who were working 100 miles from their base, and initially we were paying hotel, 4-star hotel bills, and actually became cheap to live in our second home.
Thank you. Nick, any comeback on anything you'd like to add on that?
Just a related question. I'm wondering whether we should be able to have the right of recall for our MPs, whether that would encourage the integrity.
Yes, I think it is certainly Conservative Party policy. I think it is Lib Dem policy. I think it is Labour Party policy, and it's probably UKIP policy.
It is.
It is that if a Member of Parliament is found to be guilty of serious misconduct, then the constituents should be able to recall that Member of Parliament and choose another one. And that is a step, but only a small step, towards restoring trust in politics. If we had a smaller size of the House of Commons, so that it cost less, if we had a smaller size of government overall, so that it cost less, that would help as well. The House of Commons, the cost of the House of Commons has doubled since 1997. And that doesn't go down well with you.
Let's move on from expenses. There was something else over here.
I'll speak up loudly.
No, please come to the microphone because...
I'll speak quite loudly. Could this policy possibly be retrospective too, so that we can deal with the various criminals that are now in the House of Lords, and also perhaps deal with people who haven't paid the taxes that they promised to pay for the last 10 years? Quite senior figures in the Conservative Party, Lord Ashcroft.
I shouldn't say all parties.
Yes, I absolutely agree. They do need to be retrospective. Arrangements need to be made with those individuals, and where there have been serious criminal charges, then obviously we need to look at that. And I'm talking about anybody in my party who might be guilty of that should also be looked at. It should be for everybody, because the thing is that we need to ascertain the behaviour of those particular politicians and look at it case by case, because there are obviously lords who haven't paid taxes over so many years, and one funds a political party, and that seriously needs to be looked at, because it is not fair. We cannot expect the public to accept austerity while people are getting away with murder with not paying what they should have paid in the first place.
I have one. I think when Denzil Coulson is saying one funds a political party, he's thinking that Michael Ashcroft funds the Conservative Party. Michael Ashcroft has, I think, provided 1% of the Conservative Party funding in recent years. And what we were talking about just now was the right of recall of democratically elected members of Parliament. Nobody has elected Michael Ashcroft or any of the other lords, people like Lord Paul, who has always funded the Labour Party. We have a different system with the House of Lords, and I do agree with Denzil, and I think probably with Mary Jones, and no doubt also with Ruth Duffin, that we need to move towards a substantially elected House of Lords. There is something deeply idiosyncratic about having a legislature in this country that is not answerable to the electorate. And while I think it should be substantially elected, in order to continue to take advantage of the huge benefit of the ability that the judges give and that the bishops give, or sorry, the judges used to give and that the bishops do give to the House of Lords, I think it should nevertheless be largely democratic.
Thank you.
Actually, if I may add something to that, of course there is one small democratic element of the House of Lords, and that is the elected members of the hereditary peers. And if you actually look at them, they bring huge skills and experience to the post without the work. It's only when I've come across a number of them that I've realised how valuable they are. And if they were lost purely because of a need to have a routinely elected second chair, the government as a whole would lose a lot of skills. I always thought that I would be in favour of a purely elected House of Lords until I met people like Merlin Arab, and who is I think he chairs the IT committee in the House of Lords, and he's the Earl of Oak. He brings a skill there. There are a number of them that are there purely because they're recognised by their peers as having value in the House of Lords. And so I'm not in favour of a purely elected second chairman because of the skills it will lose. I think I'm off message here.